You're listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Wepa, what up, mi gente? It's your boy, Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders Podcast. And today we got an awesome guest. Homie is a writer. He is a cover artist. He got a fantastic book that you could pick up on store shelves, right? Or via Fanbase Press. That's right. This book is on Fanbase. It's called Ripple Effects. It's up to issue 3, and it is a banger. So let me talk to the person that is writing this book. There's some dope cover art and has his own amazing journey as well. The one, the only, the future star that's about to devour the comics world, Mr. Jordan Hart. What's going on, kiddo? How you doing?
Good. That's the greatest intro I've ever gotten in my life, I would say. So thank you for that.
No worries, my brother. Thank you for doing such a dope book that is Ripple Effects. You and your partner are smashing it, homie. Smashing it. I thoroughly entertained with the first 3 issues. Got really into the story of being a superhero with a very crazy struggle, if you will, which we'll get into, and very real sounding to me in that case. Not every superhero is perfect. You feel me? And so I like the approach you took with that, and the cast and all. I was like, okay, we're gonna get into this. So let's get into the origin story of Mr. Jordan Hart. No relation to Brett or the Hart Foundation, right?
No. Unfortunately, yeah. When I was a kid, I was a big DX guy too. So
Oh yes, well, good times, good wrestling era.
I think if you would have told any of us that The Rock would become what he is these days, I mean, maybe you could have seen it.
I saw it. He had a different personality than most of the wrestlers. You know what I mean? So I saw it, and obviously Vince saw it, and it took hella advantage. But good for him. But you know what? This is about the Rock of comics over here, the rock star, Mr. Jordan Hart. So, kiddo, talk to me. Where you from? Where you grew up at?
Great. So I grew up in the Midwest in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Not a lot to do there during winters when you're stuck inside 7-8 months of the year, depending on how bad the winter is. So always had an interest in drawing, always did.
Really?
And
was that something that was you yourself, or things that you saw that maybe a family member introduced, friends?
Yeah, it was just me. As long as I could remember, I was always drawing. My mom's favorite story is that I took a colored pencil to her wall like 3 weeks after I learned how to walk. So that was destructive. Shouldn't have done it, but just always had a pencil or crayon in my hand or marker, whatever. So my mom saw that and thought that maybe I'd like a comic book. So they bought me. I was like 4 or 5. They bought me the Ghostbusters 2 graphic novel adaptation, right? And I loved it, but I loved it because it was Ghostbusters, not because it was a comic book, if that makes sense.
I get you. You were a fan of something, not particularly of the genre it was presented in.
Totally. So then would have been 2 years later, 1991. I'm at the grocery store, haven't really thought about comics, and I walk by. I'm 6 years old. I still remember it. I walk by the magazine rack, and I see Jim Lee's X-Men #1. And I see it's like a dude with lasers coming out of his eyes, a dude with claws out of his hands, and a man made of ice. And I was like, I need to get. I don't care what this is. I was like, told him, I was like, don't buy me food for the week. Give me this instead. Like this is all.
I'll starve, Mom. Give me this, please.
Yeah, please. All for
I'll be a good boy.
yeah. And luckily, she did purchase it for me. And
I hope she bought you food too, though.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
She did as well, yes. And that's what really changed everything. That was like, I would say, my defining moment in comics is finding X-Men 1 just on my own and
finding Jim Lee on your own.
Jim Lee, and then it just exploded from there, and it really never stopped ever since. Just I've always been into comics, always loved them, and
So let me ask, growing up then, here you are, you're a geeky kid, right? You're into comics, you're into this old stuff, you're an artist. I mean, did you have a like-minded wolf pack, if you will?
I did. You know, it's funny when Stranger Things came out, and it was very funny because I feel like watching Stranger Things, that was my neighborhood group, right? We were in a
That's my homie, son.
yeah, we were in a working class neighborhood on the south side of Milwaukee, and we just had our bikes, and then that was what we did. We had a comic book store like a 10-minute bike ride away. When we were old
Ooh,
enough to go,
cool.
we could just go there. And yeah, me and my two neighbors, they were both a year younger than me, but we loved comics, and we all loved comics together. We all loved the X-Men animated show. You know, that brought a lot of people in when I was young, the animated show, into comics. I still remember that too.
Did you become the go-to comic geek of the school? If people would
Yes.
ask questions to in the
Yeah.
X-Men, is this real like the comic?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that hasn't changed. I think that's still is today. I'll have friends text me like, I'm looking for first appearance of Modoc. What is that? I'm like, oh, it's an old Strange Tales issue. Just Google Strange Tales. I think
Yeah,
168. I'm
Googled
like,
it.
oh,
Googled it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
but okay, I do the same thing, kiddo. But what they wind up asking me on follow up, how much should I pay? I'm like, oh my god, you want me to be a professional grader, bro?
And especially now, especially in the year of
Yes,
2022, the comic prices are insane. They're insane.
yes,
I
they
mean,
are.
I would have never thought that some of these books would be going for what they're
My
going for.
friend, I hate going through the Instagram feed because I'm into comics and I have to follow comic stuff. But when they
Of
start
course,
showing photos, and I swear about every photo of maybe 10 comics, I could say I had at least half, or at least a piece of those. I'm like,
sure.
God, what did
Yeah,
I sell? I had to sell it though. Again, I was lucky enough to have the comics to sell at the time to help my family. You know what I mean? So it's a
totally.
blessing, but of course, when you look at it, it's also regret afterwards. Like, damn it.
I know. Yeah, yeah, you did the right thing. Family first, right? But
Always family first.
it's yeah, it's tough. It's like I wish so much like all those books I saw that were like $60 at the time. Like I'm not spending $60 on that. Now they're like 600. Like damn, why didn't I buy it then? But
Yeah,
anyways,
I
whatever.
get it. It's a tough business, let me tell you.
Yeah.
All right, so while you were in school, were you doing comic art and whatnot, or is that something, again, you were always into yourself, but did you do that there, and did you have commission requests, and how serious did you take it? There was always art first before any type of writing, right?
Correct. Yeah. So all the way through grade school, it was always just like sketching. It was Christmas. I'd sketch Wolverine in a Santa hat for my friends, or do like Gambit and with elves or whatever. Like I was always doing the sketches. And then I got to high school, and I was in the art program. It's like the top art school for the state of Wisconsin, for high school wise. So they're very fine art focused. So I kind of fell into the trap of, oh, comics aren't art. Like that's just
Ah,
commercial pop art. So while I still loved comics and read them and bought them and dressed as Spider-Man for Halloween and all that stuff, but I started doing more painting, like more abstract painting.
yeah.
And I went to college. I went to art school, so I did go to art school, and that was really where I had to make the decision: is do I want to be an illustrator or do I want to do something else? And I chose to go into graphic design, figuring that I could always illustrate and practice and like get to a level if I needed to. Because like all of my heroes, Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld got hired out of high school.
Yeah,
Like
right.
none really studied art; they just grinded over sketch pads every day and got there. So yeah, so I went into design and thought, well, maybe I'll go into comics after I get my degree. I don't know. So I was the first person in my family to go to college. So
Awesome.
also felt like, yeah, I wanted to, there were so many jobs in graphic design that I was like, okay, like at least I'll have a job somewhere and I can draw on the side if needed.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I like it. So, well, when did the spark come to actually now do a comic book? When did that happen? How did it happen?
So yeah, so how that it happened is that, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I had become very ill, very sick. I almost died, and I was on bed rest for 3 months.
Three
And
months.
yeah, yeah,
Jesus.
in Wisconsin winter in February in the north, that's the worst.
Oof.
That's the
Yeah,
worst.
I know.
It's just like the days are short, they're gray every day. It's like 4 degrees. It's terrible. But
Yeah, depressed and central.
yeah, totally. Yeah, it was. And at the time, one of my almost my mentor, my closest friend and mentor in my career in advertising, he grew up with comics too, so we really connected over comics
Oh,
before I
cool.
got sick. So he came and visited me once I got out of the hospital and just brought a stack of books. I mean, like everything, Marvel, DC, like whatever. It's just this massive tower, and I really had nothing else to do. So yeah, I just started catching up, and I was just like becoming so ill and almost dying. It's like it gives you perspective, and I
Yeah.
was like, I feel like I have a second chance. Like I want to do something with it, and maybe I could do a comic. And I knew I didn't have the chops to draw, right? Because I just had been so rusty. It was to take years to get back up to speed. And I was like, well, maybe I can give it a shot at writing. And it just
And you
kind of
never wrote before that.
correct. I had never
Wow.
written before. Yeah, correct.
Okay, check that out. He was look at it. This guy is in his bed on bed rest after going through a life, and he's thinking, "What's my next move?" Inspiring, kiddo.
Totally.
That is dope.
Thank you. Thank
That
you.
is dope. So, what was that learning curve like? Because now you've never written a comic before.
Yeah, it was steep. You know what I mean? Like, uh, sometimes, like if I focus on something, like I don't give up until I get there. You know what I mean? So like almost get like obsessive about it. So like to get there, I was not educated as a writer. I went to art school, so just reading a ton of books. And there's not really that many books on comic book writing. There are some now, like Bendis has one, some good ones, but at the time there weren't. So I just read a ton of screenwriting books, and that is a piece of advice I give anyone that says, "Well, I'd like to write comics, but I don't know how to write." Like, buy how to write screenplay books, because you'll learn all the stuff you need to know in there. And comics are like movies in the fact that they're so visual, right? They're like
Yes.
you're seeing it, this is like what you're getting. So it's great. Like if you were to read a book on how to write a novel, you'd become a really good writer. You'd probably write really good dialogue and good story, but like it doesn't translate as much because there's just so much more detail in a novel, where in a film you're seeing it like one frame
Yeah.
of film, one panel of a comic, you get it. Coffee shop, done. Like move on to something else. So yeah, I read a ton of screenwriting books. I wrote a ton of bad scripts, terrible scripts. I had one friend who was a screenwriter, a friend of a friend of a friend who was a screenwriter, that was kind enough to read a couple of my first scripts and give me notes to be like, this is what you should do. You're not doing this, you're doing that, blah, blah, blah. And that helped. And then I just started pitching comic companies, to try and get a comic. It took 2 years and endless rejections, endless ghosting. But like, again, being such a huge fan of those late 80s, 90s guys. So like I knew Todd McFarlane. I think he said like 500 rejection letters or something like that, where like he's got it all. So it's like they didn't faze me. And then that's my other number one tip of advice to anyone trying to break into comics is like, don't let the no's phase you, because it's just growing pains. Everyone has to go through it. This is not personal. And once you get there, someone will bite. So
Yes. It's only no for now. I mean, that
yeah,
means just later.
Exactly. My wife has a really good quote. Yeah, it's no. It's just like I'm not ready yet. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
you're not ready. You like look at it that way. And looking back at all those no's I got, I was not ready. Like I was there. If anything that I did submit originally was published, I'd be so embarrassed. You know what I mean? Like, oh God, please never read this. So
Gotcha. So I gotta know. So is this book your first project? Period.
no,
Okay.
this would be my fourth comic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fourth. Has it gotten easier?
Yes, it has. Each
Wonderful.
one gets easier. So
Awesome. So let's start getting into this baby and the creative team and the awesome publisher. Shout out to Barbara from Fanbase Press for hooking
Yeah.
it up over here. Tell us, what is ripple effect?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Effects.
So Ripple Effects is it's my first superhero story, but
Oh,
it's
it's a
very,
first superhero. Oh,
yeah,
okay,
my
cool.
first superhero story. Correct. Yeah, everything I've done has been horror, sci-fi. So this is my first superhero book, and it's basically uh, a young 25-year-old aspiring novelist um, gets type 1 diabetes. So his body transforms and he has acute type 1 diabetes. But what came with the diabetes is invincibility. So he calls himself a superhero paradox. So literally, his name is George. Nothing can hurt George except his own body. The simplest terms, like a Phantom convention, it's like imagine Superman, but instead of kryptonite, it's his own pancreas, it's his own body, and he's very he rejects being a superhero and keeps it a secret because he doesn't think he can be a superhero with his diabetes. If his insulin crashes, if something goes wrong on a mission, he could slip in a diabetic coma in a matter of minutes or hours. So it's a very character driven story on him struggling to accept his powers. But that being said, it's a positive story. It's optimistic. You know what I mean? And my goal was to just tell a really uh, like real story, and how someone would feel in that situation, and go from there.
I think you did a wonderful job, but that also may be tied to what you've gone through personally in life. Am I correct to state that?
Yes, correct. So yeah, so the other question, where does the idea come from, right?
Yep.
That's the hardest question any writer has to answer. But this one, I do know. So, as I mentioned earlier, when I was on bed rest, it's because when I was 25, I basically had multiple pulmonary embolisms, which
Oh
are,
shit.
yeah, blood clots that start in your leg, go through your heart and into your lungs, and they kill 1 in 3 people. And I had multiple ones. I was 25, in perfect health, like worked out, didn't eat bad or anything, and I just thought I had a cold, and I started like coughing up a ton of blood, and I was like, "Ooh, should go to the hospital." And yeah, they said you got a
Wow.
ton of blood clots in your lungs. I was like, a day would have been the show's over if I would have waited another day, which is crazy. So they rushed me in and hooked me up on like super blood thinners, and yeah, I remember sitting there, and they did blood work every hour on the hour for 5 days, and they thought I was working too much. They thought I had because you can get it's rare, but you can get a blood clot from sitting for a really long time without getting up. So I believe Serena Williams was on a really long flight and didn't get up, and that's how she got her blood clot. So that's what they thought had happened to me. They did all these tests and no clotting disorders came back on the tests. So I'm like, okay, I just sat too long. I got to get through this, rest up, 3 months of bed
Yeah.
rest. I'll be back. So then,
But
yeah,
isn't that crazy though? Through the rest, how you may have gotten it, they're asking you to rest.
yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, don't sit, lay, I guess, right? But yeah, I don't know. It's confusing, but
I'm very familiar with this though, Jordan, because I had someone in my life deal with that very thing, and there
yeah,
was very very serious where it
yeah.
had to go into surgery because
Oh,
the clot busters were not functioning.
wow. Are they okay?
Yes, now they are,
Great.
thank God they are, and they, doing well and strong.
Yeah,
But yes, I've been there to see that, and it's very scary. So I'm glad you're still with us, brother. Because if you say
thank you,
one
man.
1 in 3, that that you look at that. I'm lucky enough to meet 2 survivors already.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad that your family member is okay too. So yeah, then a year and a half later, they're like, you can go off your blood thinners. You're healed. Like you,
Wait, you were able to get off them though because you had wow.
yeah, because they couldn't find any blood clotting disorders. They couldn't
So
find.
if they don't find it, it can be stopped then.
Yeah. So they
Okay,
were
there
like,
we go.
it's a fluke thing. I went off blood thinners. I was off blood thinners for 4 or 5 weeks, started coughing up blood again, started having crazy chest pain, couldn't even stand from the pain in my lungs. I knew right away. So went to the hospital. Sure enough, they did a scan. I think I had like 11 clots in my lungs.
What the hell?
It was crazy. So then they basically told me that blood clotting disorders right now, you'd think with all the technological advancements we have, right, that it'd be whatever. But it's like right now they say blood clotting disorders are like an iceberg. They know about what's above the water, but below the water, they don't even have tests to register them. Yeah. So they said, and I was healthy my whole life, right? And they said basically, your blood mutated. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, I wish to be a mutant my whole life.
Where's my powers, Doc?
I was like, what is this? Like, why can't I fly or shoot lasers? Like, this is what I get. So yeah, it was back again. Blood thinners for life at that point. On bed rest again. And yeah, like one doctor made in passing, like, so yeah, your own body is your own worst enemy. And I remember sitting there like, ding, that's a story idea. A superhero who's invincible, but whose own body can kill him. And that's how Ripple Effects, how it was conceived. Now that was 2012. So 10 years ago. That was
what? Wow.
10 years ago. And I just
so this was sitting on a shelf in the back of your brain, if you will, for this long of a time.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
I just it was too hard to write. Originally, George was
fresh.
Had thrombophilia. And it was too hard to write, too real. And I just couldn't do it. And I was able to, like, I knew I was writing other comics were getting published, like on sci-fi and horror. And I was like, okay, I can just, keep doing that. And then I just kind of knew it was time to do the book, because there's really, I mean, there are superheroes out there with illnesses and that are disabled and stuff, but like not at the depth that I tried to hit in this story.
No, you killed this, because again, we had Captain Marvel, but he got canceled way later on, so he had a superheroic life, without too much of interference. The only other superhero that comes to mind comes from those Image days, Valentino Shadowhawk. They had AIDS, but it also at the end, wasn't something that would affect them in the middle of the field, as rapidly as this guy. So that's what makes this such a great read, because at any moment, anything could happen to him.
Totally.
Because, physical assertion, especially with a diabetic, is as bad as eating a whole bunch of sugar.
Totally. You're exactly right. So yeah, it was 2019. I was finally said, you know what? I love this story too much to let it sit. I'm gonna change George to a type 1 diabetic, because my best friend at work has been a type 1 diabetic since he was 7 years old. So I said, okay. And we commiserated a lot. He was my creative partner. So like we had a lot of the same worries, a lot of the same insecurities and fears about like hiding our illnesses in the workplace, and like medical debt and all that stuff. So we were really close, and we are close. And I said, okay, I can do this as a type 1 diabetic, and I can use help from him to make sure I'm accurate and respectful and like mindful, which is what I really wanted to do. So he helped me do it. And then back to the publishers, Barbara and Bryant Dillon at Fanbase Press. So I'm in LA. The LA comic scene, the indie comic scene is really tight. You'd think it's a big city, but like if you're into indie comics in LA, you kind of all know each other. And I'd known them for years, and I really love being around them. They're great people, and I love the work that they published. So I pitched them Ripple Effects. I didn't pitch it anywhere else. They were the publisher I wanted to work with, and I was hoping they'd want it, and they did. So that's,
of course, they recognize greatness. They recognize what's a great story. And this is it. So let me show a cover, and then I want to find out how you even met the artist. But here's like the issue 1 cover art. Yeah. Look at this. So fancy too, with the ripples and all. I mean, using your trade skills, if you will, I think, right?
Yeah. So that this cover was done by my friend Justin Harder, who's an end titles artist, and he was able to do the covers for me this time, and he's a way better artist than I am. So this is the first comic I haven't done my own cover for, but I feel like I majorly upgraded. So
no, it's amazing. So, but how much influence did you have with the Ripple look? Because that looks so artsy. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
love how that looks. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then here we got the other cast member, La
Yep.
Salvadora.
Yep.
Dig it. Look at her, kick ass, funny, great spirit. I really want to see this as a cartoon eventually, or something, or animated film. So that way you could, I think you do better with the special effects on the Ripple.
I
You,
agree. I
right?
fully agree with you. I think animation is the best way to serve the story. And the
Yep.
yeah.
And there it goes for the graphic when it come out. Gorgeous, is it? Nah, I mean, fan base only makes them dope.
Yeah.
But there goes this though. I really dig this. Look at that. That itself is a poster. Please don't smoke. Well, and
Yeah.
stare into this. You're gonna fall into an abyss. Apparently.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Don't stare at it too long. Don't get a black light out. But
So talk about the team, building the team to really fit the vision of the story for you.
yeah, so once the story Barbara and Bryant, they extended me an offer on Ripple Effects, which was awesome. And then COVID lockdown happened like a couple
Oh,
of weeks after it. And there was a pandemic lockdown aspect to the story originally. I'm like, whoop, we need to change that. Like, no one's gonna want to read about this anymore. So that's delayed the book almost a year, just with the release schedules and everything to tweak the story. But I'm glad that we were able to, because had the book already been in production and COVID then happened, like it would have been bad. So
it
I'm
would have
glad
been
that
stuck
happened.
somewhere.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
goodness, right? Oof.
yeah. So then we were able to just look for artists, and we had so many great artists. They put out a call for submissions. Fanbase Press did, and
Oh,
we had
wonderful.
so many great artists that wanted to be a part of the book, and they were great. And a big thing for me is like, this is another thing I talk about too to younger, newer writers, is finding the right artist for your story, right? Like
Hmm.
some artists are just so good at horror, but maybe couldn't do comedy, and vice versa, right? So it's like we had some great artists that came in that were just incredible, but they, I knew they wouldn't fit the tone of the story. This is a heavier tone, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And we were able to find Bruno, and when I saw his work, Bruno Chirillo from Brazil, when I saw his work, I just was blown away, and I was like, this is great. Like he's bringing it to life, but he's not heavy-handed, which I'm as the colorist as well. I knew I could set the tone with the colors, especially being set in LA. It needs to be bright, like I
Yeah.
want bright colors everywhere. So we worked with him. Justin is one of my friends in LA that I just had met at the comic convention scene, and he's a movie end titles artist. So like he drew the end titles for
Okay.
Deadpool, the little stick figure, and
Oh, well, cool.
My Little Pony. He's done a lot of movies, Thor: The Dark World. And he's a huge comic fan, like way back to the Image days, just like me. Like he's got the
Okay.
Valentinos, the Liefeld.
I mean,
The,
again, that's my era too from high school. I had a local
yep,
shop, and every
yep.
Wednesday we go to that shop, rack up, stack up. We weren't greedy like speculators buying 50 copies of one issue.
No,
We did what we did and had fun.
I remember that too. Like just going to the stores, you see guys with just a stack of Young Bloods or like whatever. Like I'm paying for my kids' college with this. Like I just want one.
Good luck.
Yeah, save me one, man, please. But yeah, so we had those three involved, and then for me, we brought in Shane Kadlachek to color flat the pages, which saved me a lot of time because I still work almost full time. So it's just a lot of balancing between comics and work. So he did an awesome job. And then Jano Radsford lettered, and he's an Eisner Award nominated letterer.
Ooh.
He did a great job bringing it to life. And it was a great team, and Barbara and Bryant were just great editors. They like gave me full creative freedom to do what I wanted, but also pulled me back in when I needed to be pulled in, because that's what I need. Like every writer's different. I'm the type of writer that wants a lot of people to read my scripts and give me notes or thoughts on it, because
Yeah.
for
You
me,
want
that
to bring the best product out there, kiddo.
totally. Like I have friends who are writers that don't want anyone to read their stuff at all, and
Then why write?
yeah, yeah. It's like, well, then people will tell you those things in their reviews of your work. I've found, and that's not the most fun either. But
Yeah, you don't get upset when somebody blasts you. I mean,
yeah,
I don't like we don't do that here. We don't blast. We don't that's ineffective type of reviewing. I think I love. Oh, people need criticism. Sure, constructive. Not be a
yes,
jerk about it. I
agree.
see too many people be jerks about it, and that's the problem. But they won't admit that.
Yeah,
That's their narcissistic side coming out there. Oh
yes,
no, I'm entitled to my opinion. Sure, you are, but you don't have to be a dick about it. This is might
totally.
just say on this.
Totally, man. So I'd rather get that constructive feedback while it's still a Word document as opposed to a printed comic book, So yeah, they did a great job. And then they came up with the ideas then to have the essay series in the back of each issue, which I'm super
Which
proud
is fire, yes, and strong essays, especially that issue one.
of. Mhm.
With the type one diabetes, because my mom has diabetes, not type one though.
Yeah,
Thank God, because that shit is crazy. But
yeah,
I have people with diabetes in the family. I've had people pass on because of how bad it
yeah,
was that had the type one.
yeah,
So again, you thank you. You are bringing about something that's rarely discussed in this format. So
yeah.
but you're doing it in a cool way. So you have superheroes, but it's also the human issues condition, right? I
Yes,
mean,
totally,
how does somebody feel superheroic when inside is like they're less than heroic, or at least they feel they are. I
totally.
mean, again, it's a great book, but you touching and pulling on the heartstrings, kiddo.
Thank you. Well, wait till you get to issue 5 then.
Oh
It's
God, you're
the
gonna
most,
murder me, bro.
yeah, yeah, you'll have to email me after you read it. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's
I'm
the
gonna
most
email your ass then.
yeah, it's the most proud thing I think I've written is issue 5.
Oh, I
So
can't wait. I
yeah,
cannot wait to read that. So just a couple more things before we go. Talk about that cast now, because even though the story is about George, we meet other people, especially people that seem to be in the same boat. I mean, in the superheroic side, we don't know if he's the only one affected the way he is. But
yeah,
hey, only future issues will tell.
yeah, yes, correct. So when I was building this cast, I asked myself, if people were superpowered in today's world, what would they be like, right? And what would the world be like? And I think that if superheroes were real today, they'd be the most famous people on the planet. They would
Yeah.
have billions of followers, they would have everything. And I think with that fame comes more power, right? Like power. So like I don't think there would really be super villains to start with. I think people like not in the beginning, people would be so famous. Like, why would I mess this up? Like they wouldn't want to be a super villain. So
Influencing on a whole new level on the socials.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, so I just wanted to build a cast with this world's Superman is Salvadora Kristen Gutierrez, who I just thought would be fun. It's set in SoCal, so there's so much diversity here, so many different ethnicities that I wanted to reflect that into this story about what it would really be like. So yeah, she's basically the Superman of the world, and she's leading a secret team of other superpowered young people in their 20s and 30s in Los Angeles that all have day jobs, but kind of put on the mask at night under covert options, and they have chosen to live out of the spotlight. They want their normal lives, but they want to help at night, whereas Salvadora is just so powerful. She's the opposite. She doesn't have a personal life anymore, and now she's just full-time Salvadora at all times.
And that's a problem too. I mean, mental
Yeah,
health wise, at least in
yeah,
my opinion, which I noticed that through the stories, like she's too much in herself. What's going on?
yes,
Even
yes.
Superman is Clark sometimes. You feel me?
Yeah, yeah, correct. So that pressure, and the reason that I do that is because you'll see in issue 4 and 5, it's like that's a lot of pressure on anyone, right? To be a hero at all times. So like that pressure will start to get to her, which I think is another real human thing that would happen. But then, of course, I wanted to build like some Robin Hood type characters, right? Like I'm fascinated. I've always been fascinated, even before I understood storytelling as a kid, with Magneto of the X-Men, right?
Oh,
Because like Magneto could be the good guy one week and then the bad guy the next week. You know what I mean? Like it's like he does bad stuff, but also he grew up in a concentration camp. He saw what humans can do to each other. He feels like that's happening to the mutants. So he's like, doesn't want that happening. And you're like, well, if that was me, like I would feel that way. I probably wouldn't do the thing does, but I'd be concerned, right? So I wanted to create a character like that in Ripple Effects, and that comes in the form of Uppercut, Juan Gutierrez, who is Salvador's older brother. And
which you dropped a bomb immediately in issue one. Here I thought they were
yeah,
gonna beat each other's butt, and all
yeah,
of a sudden but mom, I said, wait, what?
yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
shit.
So that's not a spoiler. That's right away in issue one. So his opinion is that instead of using powers to save anyone, his sister can do. So what he wants to do is help communities and help underprivileged and impoverished people that need his help more than saving them from a sinking boat or something like that. So, but to do that, he's stealing, right? He's breaking the law to help the people who need it, and that's where his sister has a problem. But George will eventually, slight spoiler, not major, but he'll find himself in between both of those siblings, right? Like he'll have Salvador on one side wanting him to join her like secret superhero group, and then he'll have Uppercut on the other side that's like, dude, you're buried in medical debt. You're sick. You're from a working class family, right? And you see how your family's treated. Like, don't you want to change that? Don't you want to help like do something there? So that's kind of the dynamic that George is going to find himself in.
Yeah, and they're great, very human things, in this story. That's complicated in itself because again, what is bad, what is good, right? That
Yeah,
definition is left to a very individual basis. Even with the Magneto, he really was introduced as a badass villain, but over
yeah,
time, his character has changed to that anti-hero.
yeah.
I would like to put him. There are
I would
some
agree.
times that he's got to do what he's got to do, and you could agree with it almost like,
Yeah,
well, I mean, especially me from New York. I mean, sometimes you're gonna have to get a little grimy to get the job done. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
totally. Very true.
Uh,
Yeah, totally.
I'm so digging. See, folks, you got to get this book. It's really, really, really good, man. Again, I read through issue 3 already, and I couldn't put it down. It was 1, 2, 3. Yes, yes, yes. Damn
Thank you.
it, I need 4 now.
Thank you. Thank you. I
So
appreciate it.
when is issue 4 coming?
So issue 4 is going to be September, the middle of September. So it'll be the third week of September, that Wednesday. I don't have the date on me right now.
I'm trying. 1, 2, 3. Is it the 21st?
Yes. Yep.
There we go.
So it'll be the
21st
21st.
issue 4.
Yep. Yeah.
I can't wait. I can't wait. We definitely. I want you back. After 5. If you break my heart, I'm gonna have to have a special Comic Crusaders special and have words with you. Honey
Okay.
pie.
Okay. So I'm excited for that. I hope so.
So yeah, man. Again, I really dig it. This is something different. I haven't read something like this, and I really enjoyed it. I
Thank you.
connected with it, especially with the story. Because again, and you look at your story, which I could also connect to because I saw and experienced that myself. So, man,
Yep.
flowers time. Thank you, my brother,
Thank you.
for what you
Thank you.
do, for bringing this type of story. Doing what you've been doing. Don't you ever stop, man. It's for real. You have Galactus on both shoulders because you will be the conqueror of comics. That's the real talk. Keep doing what I'm telling you. You got such a
Will
bright
do.
future. Let's manifest. This is gonna be the greatest cartoon ever. Also, that.
Thank
Let's
you.
get it picked up. Let's get it picked up, baby.
Let's do it. Thank you so much for your kind words. That really
Well,
touched me. I
let
appreciate it.
let's end with your kind words. What type of advice would you give someone trying to step into the game like you did?
Into the comics game.
Yep.
Keep your chin up. Keep your chin up. Do not let no's get you down. We all have run through the gauntlet of no's, and honestly, It's so much easier for a publisher or for an editor, or for if you're an artist and you want a writer, or vice versa. It's so much easier to say no than it is to say yes. So make sure you think of going out as taking, an editor told me this is one of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got, like taking away as many no's as you can, right? Like look at your work and say, what could someone say no about this? And when I say like the colors aren't good enough, the lettering doesn't look professional, there's no B story, there's no character development, like really look at your work and think about what would an editor say and try to visualize that, and then adjust it and just work. Work hard. It's not easy. I can tell you that right now. I would say probably 80% of people will just get discouraged over time, and I don't blame them. It is really hard. But if you just keep working and you stay positive, it's like Stan Lee said, he's like, the cream will always rise. And it doesn't seem like it, but it will if you stick with it.
There you go, folks. You heard it from the man right here. Got a day job doing this on the gig on the side. He got a dope team. He's dealing with his own personal issues, and yet he is bringing about some dopeness. So don't you make no excuses, because Jordan you could do it too. All right, Mr. Jordan Hart, no relation to Brett. So if you want to follow Jordan, please follow him on Instagram at Jordith. That's JORDY JORDITH on the Instagrams. And I need you to go visit Fanbase Press and pre-order the trade paperback. All right, and you can probably get the issues through there too. So just click away, because Fanbase Press got a lot of amazing stuff. Check them out, their website as well, Fanbase Press. Really great comic book company. You support indie. That's where it's at. All right. So you know what to do with me, right? Follow everything at comiccrusaders.com, everything at undercovercapes.com. That's where my extended family's at, with amazing shows like Old Times Comic Book Show, Definitive Crusade, No Price Podcast, and more. And at Comic Crusaders, obviously, you can see me, but also Crisis in the Toyverse, Cinema Crusaders, Music Crusaders, and a whole lot more. All right, and with that, I'm Mega with the amazing Mr. Jordan Hart. Hasta la próxima, mi gente. Wepa! Later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.com and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.